Hello, everyone, and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 769. 769, Thursday, May the 2nd, 2019. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, of course, the big news of yesterday was the Bill Barr hearings. And it was exactly what you'd expect with the Republicans trying to show some support for Barr, who was there getting tag teamed by the Democrats. And of course, they made fools of themselves once again. And Barr proved that he is he's heads above any of the Democrats on this committee in terms of their understanding of the law or political situations, hearings, or anything else. I mean, the dude is absolutely fantastic at how he handles these hearings. He never looks rattled at all, and he took a lot of flack. It's now the second or third set of hearings we've seen him in. He just doesn't get rattled, and he doesn't take any crap. That's one thing we've seen right away. He does not apologize. He does not kneel down. He does not back off. In fact, he said today, "I'm not backing off." So, he's proven to be a pretty tough cookie, and that's good because that's what's going to be needed given the circumstances that we're facing, that he's facing specifically. So, I did not get a chance to see the entire hearings. Obviously, I was at work, but when I got home, I did watch probably about a dozen different clips. So I saw some of the good highlights, I would say. I'm sure I missed some things, but I'm sure I'll be filled in on that over the next couple days. But just from some of the things I did see, I saw the clip with Senator Whitehouse, of course, asking Barr about his using the word spy. And they kicked that around for a minute or two, and Barr just handled it brilliantly. And then at the end of that exchange, Whitehouse, I guess he's trying to get the last word in, and says, well, no one at the Department of Justice uses that term spy. And Barr just kind of looked at him with this like half smile and goes, I do. I do. I use the term spy all the time. So that was pretty good. Just that look on Barr's face after he said it was like a smirk. It was kind of funny. Of course, Mazie Hirono made a total ass of herself. At some point, Lindsey Graham had to just step in and shut her down. She was just making this most slanderous statement. Didn't really have much of a question. She just wanted to slander him for 5 minutes, and Graham shut her down. She's absolutely disturbed, man. That woman is absolutely disturbed. I can't believe the people of Hawaii elected her. Unbelievable. Of course, he stunned Dianne Feinstein. She hit him with a question which she thought was a gotcha question, and basically, he just looked at her and said, yeah, well, that's not a violation of the law. And she was like, had nowhere to go with it, man. He just shut her up. So that was a good one. And he, of course, did take some time to talk about the fact that he recently has spoken with Inspector General Huckleberry Horowitz. And when he's talking about the fact that Horowitz is going to be focused on the FISA issue, specifically the handling of the FISA, how it was handled by the FBI, the DOJ, the basis for the FISA, which is really important, and of course the FISA applications, whether or not they were falsified or exculpatory information, what have you. So those were the areas really that Horowitz has been focused on, and he's had a year, so we have to assume he's done a very, very deep dive on that. And Barr said that he's also looking into that himself, and that he has a couple people that are kind of working with Horowitz and exchanging information with that. So clearly, Barr is definitely deeply involved, working with Horowitz. And let's not forget that when Barr first was sworn in and came in and started his position, he had a private meeting with what's his name out there in Utah, John Huber. So Huber, I guess Barr had a conversation with him, and if you remember, it was Huber who was assigned to Horowitz in case Horowitz needed a U.S. attorney for whatever reason. Huber was there. So Barr has spoken to Huber. He's spoken to Horowitz, and my guess is he's probably told them something, and now he's got a couple people working with him as well. So you certainly get the feeling with Barr that something is definitely going on here. Then Grassley, of course, was talking about the leaking. He talked about the fact of all the leaks, and none of them have really been investigated, with the exception of the two. Of course, they had the one with James Wolfe, and of course he got off with a love tap, and of course then we had the girl, this reality winner, who got slammed, and she's doing some pretty heavy jail time. But the real criminal leaks that had to do with Spygate and all that kind of stuff, those people have never been apprehended, I guess you would say. So Grassley was specifically asking about that, and Barr said that there are multiple criminal leak investigations underway. Multiple criminal leak investigations underway. And he also brought up this thing I'm going to talk about here in a little while, about this supposed Russian disinformation campaign and the dossier being part of that. I'll get to that here in a little while. He also said, Barr said, that he has not yet had someone go through Mueller's investigation to see if he did address some of the Russian disinformation possibilities. And so the fact that that Barr was asked this question, and he said, yeah, well, we haven't yet looked into how Mueller conducted his investigation. Meaning, they are going to look at how Mueller conducted his investigation and look into the things that Barr was supposed to be looking into. And the question was about, how could Barr just look at half of it but not look at the other half? Was he not looking out for the possibility it was a Russian disinformation campaign? The fact that there was all these other things happening on the other side. Barr didn't seem to be very interested in that. How about all the leaks? He didn't seem to be interested in finding out who leaked the Flynn Kislyak phone call. He was certainly happy to use all the information from it, but wasn't the least bit interested in how it got leaked. So this is essentially the question that Barr is asked, is are you going to look into how the Mueller investigation was conducted, what the parameters were, why he didn't look at these things, why he looked at certain things and not others, how deeply did he dig into this stuff? In other words, the question for Barr really is, are you or have you or are you planning on looking at the Mueller investigation and seeing exactly what that was all about? And Barr gave every indication that, oh yeah, we're going to be looking into it. Haven't got that far yet, but we're going to be looking into Uncle Bob's investigation and all those sorts of things. And that tells you a lot. So I'll get back into some of these other things here in just a second. I just want to cover a couple more of the news headlines, and then the rest of the video is just going to be, I want to give you my thoughts and put them out there. I know a lot of you are having very similar thoughts that I'm having, because a lot of us think alike. I can tell from reading the comments section, many of you think along the same track I do, have a lot of the same suspicions I do. Patty, Tiana, Maura, Lori. There's a whole bunch of you that think like I do. Okay, so let's go through a couple more headlines, and then I'll kind of expand on where my thoughts are on this thing. So, Barr, it looks like, is not going to testify tomorrow, or today, as you're watching the video today, in front of the House Judiciary Committee. He was in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee yesterday, which was Lindsey Graham, and he conducted the hearings in a professional way. But you will not see that in the House Intelligence Committee. Of course, we know they changed the game in the middle of the game, and Barr said, well, if you're going to do that, I'm not going to show. They've been battling over it. And, of course, crazy Jerry Nadler has said that he'll use subpoenas and all these sorts of things. Bill Barr doesn't really care. He can subpoena Bill Barr all he wants. Bill Barr doesn't have to come and testify. It's purely optional. So Nadler can do all the subpoenas he wants. But it looks like at this point that issue has not been resolved. So as of this time, Barr is not going to show up to testify in front of the House Judiciary Committee. Jerry Nadler's committee is not going to do it. Now, some of you probably heard about the Comey op-ed today, or yesterday, in the New York Times. And again, as I said a day or two ago, you're going to start seeing all the criminals come out of the woodwork, making all sorts of statements. Largely, this is for their fellow conspirators to try to send a message to them that they have not turned, that they're still holding their ground and trying to stick together. And this is probably what a lot of these things are going to be about. Reestablishing their position that they're still all down with the coup. They're not surrendering, they're not turning, or what have you. So this was Comey's opportunity, just like Sally Yates and others, and you'll see others, Brennan, Clapper, they're all doing the same. They're trying to show their solidarity, trying to show that they all got to stick together, and hoping that nobody cracks. But eventually someone will crack. It will likely be McCabe, in my opinion. McCabe or Yates are the two most likely to crack. Although, don't count out James Comey. He's a snake. He would turn on everybody in a minute to save his own skin. But I don't think they want Comey to turn, because I think they want Comey in cuffs. So they would probably try to find someone else. So anyway, Comey does this op-ed in the New York Times where he's whining and complaining about Barr. And he basically says Barr and Rodenstein lack inner strength. They lack inner strength. That's what Comey said about Barr and Rodenstein. Probably not a good idea to make that kind of a comment about the Attorney General when he's holding the keys to the jail cell, Mr. Comey. He's got everything he needs to put you away, Jim. And God willing, he will do just that. We also had other leftists coming out who may have criminal liability, depending on how far you want to go back. We had Eric Holder saying that Barr, his conduct is unacceptable. Yeah, this from the Attorney General, who was held in contempt. Let's see, we have Elizabeth Warren saying that Barr should resign. And, of course, the latest news that just came in here a little while ago is that it looks like that Uncle Bob, the executioner, is going to testify in front of Nadler's committee, the House Judiciary Committee. Now, fortunately, you do have Doug Collins, Gohmert, Jordan, and I think Meadows, maybe Meadows, is on that committee. So, assuming that Nadler holds a normal committee hearing, but I wouldn't doubt what Nadler doesn't rig it in such a way that no Republicans get to ask any questions of Mueller. He might just bring in Mueller and say, well, this is going to be a different type of hearing. We're just going to let Uncle Bob talk, and then a couple members who I'm going to appoint, including myself, are going to ask a few questions, but there'll be no questions from the whole committee. It's going to be a very limited Q&A. Mostly it's just going to be Uncle Bob's going to sit here and read a statement for us. Then we'll just have a few questions, and that'll be it. That's probably what Nadler's going to do. He's going to try to keep Jordan and Gohmert and anyone else on that committee from being able to ask any questions. That's my guess, is how that's going to be rigged. But yeah, Mueller is going to go talk to the Nadler's committee, but I bet he won't talk to Lindsey Graham's committee. Maybe Lindsey Graham can talk him into it, but I doubt it. Uncle Bob, as you'll see, is just like a lot of the other conspirators. He only goes on friendly networks, only talks to friendlies. He won't go anywhere where he might be challenged. And he shouldn't, because he's guilty of being part of a criminal coup. So, moving on from that, it's pretty obvious now to me, I'm sure all of you, and especially to Barr, William Barr, that he is now a target, just like Trump. But of course he probably, in fact, had to know that going in from day one. Had to know he was going to be a target. Just like I'm sure Barr knew that there was not only no Trump-Russia collusion or anything like that, but that it was in fact an attempted coup. I'm pretty sure Barr knows all that. And I'm pretty sure at this point Barr has figured out one more thing. That the coup effort is not over. In fact, it's about to pick up steam. And in fact, he's now become part of it. So now AG Barr is now going to be a target, just like Trump and anyone else who would step in to defend Trump or what have you. So now Barr is going to be having a target on him. They'll be calling for his impeachment. They'll be saying he's guilty of corruption, of obstruction, and everything else under the sun. They're going to go after Barr the same way they go after Trump, because they have to destroy him now to get to Trump, because I guess they feel he's going to protect Trump. Barr is going to protect the office of the president regardless of who's there or not, because that's his job. Assuming, the Attorney General does not sit back and allow a partisan group of politicians from the opposing party to literally grind the country to a halt and run a smear campaign on the President of the United States and attempt to run impeachment hearings and everything else just on politics, which is exactly what's happening. No Attorney General is going to allow that to happen. Holder or Lynch would not have allowed that to happen to Obama, and Barr is not going to allow that to happen to Trump. Doesn't mean he's a partisan. It just means he understands what he's looking at. If these people can't control their political inhibitions, then Barr or any Attorney General has to step in and do that for them. But this whole coup is not over, and as we can see from watching these hearings with William Barr, the entire coup plot simply just got more complicated. That's what has happened. It's not over. It's just gotten more complicated. As I said on a couple videos ago, I'm not sure why Barr did this. I mean, I don't know. He must be a true patriot. I don't think it's because he's a huge Trump fan, because I don't think he is a big Trump fan. Certainly not of Trump's personality. Trump is not Bob Barr's style. They're like 180 degrees the opposite. So I don't think Barr is a big fan of Trump's style. But I think he probably looked at what was going on at the Department of Justice and the FBI and thought, man, oh man, this country's in deep trouble, and it doesn't appear as anyone that can stop it. And they're going to end up driving this president out of office, and God knows what's going to happen as a result of that. And then what happens when the shoe's on the other foot? How far does that go? And once you allow these people to get away with this, I mean, you've lost the republic. So I think really it was that Barr probably didn't want to get into this thing, but I think he looked around and said, there's no one else. Maybe someone who knows him well said, man, you got to get in there, brother. You're the only guy I know of. It's just kind of like the same situation when people told George Washington, hey, there's nobody else to do it. Nobody wants the job, including you, but guess what, pal? You're the only guy. And I think that may have been the case with Barr. He may have been pressured by people who maybe said, hey man, this country's lost unless we get an Attorney General who will go in there and put this thing straight. And who else is there? And maybe Barr felt like it was his obligation. I don't think he's doing this for Trump. I think he's doing it for his belief system. I mean, this has been his entire career, and I believe when he says, he's a true believer in the FBI, the Department of Justice, and the equal justice under the law, and the Constitution, and all that. I mean, I really believe that with Barr. He's a pretty straight shooter. He comes from the swamp. He's not totally clean, but he's about as close as you're going to get. So I think he does see himself as stepping in and doing his patriotic duty. I feel that in my gut. I could be wrong, but I do feel that in my gut, having seen him now in a couple of these hearings. I get the feeling that he's serious, and that he didn't need this for any reason. He's rich, very, very rich. He's already been Attorney General. He's 68 years old. He didn't need to go in, throw his head in here, and get put through the meat grinder. And now he's going to be the target. They're going to try to destroy his entire legacy, his entire career. I mean, he could walk away and have this great legacy. When he gets done here, he's going to be pretty much, his legacy will be destroyed with at least half the people in the country anyway. So why did Barr put himself in this situation? I mean, it's a really big question. Why does a guy who's got plenty of money, 68, could have retired a long time ago, has already served in this job, doesn't need it for his resume, or whatever. I mean, there was no reason for Barr to take this job that I can think of, other than he felt like there was no one else who could come in and do what needed to be done. Knowing that, and being a pretty smart dude, he had to know that when he came in and put the kibosh on the Mueller investigation, that he was going to take flack. And he's now taking that flack. But he played it very well by keeping Rodenstein around. And that seems to have played out well for him. That was a smart move on his part. In other words, Barr has thought this through. He's not just, sort of happening on to things or making it up as he goes along or responding to things as they come his way. I think he has literally sat down and thought this entire thing out. Like, okay, I've got first to shut down the Mueller investigation. How am I going to do that? And when I do, and I prove what everybody already knows, that there is no Trump-Russia collusion, that was lunacy, I'm going to be attacked. And they're going to say I'm just a shill for Trump or whatever. How am I going to deal with that? So I think he thought that through. I think he's also thought through the fact that he knows that he's going to take down the people in the deep state, DOJ, FBI, intelligence community, who were involved in the coup. But he's got to be thinking to himself, man, as soon as I do that, they're going to come after me with everything they've got, try to destroy me. So exactly how am I going to go about doing that? Now, I don't think that he and Trump can coordinate. Certainly they can't have like one-on-one conversations where they can talk this thing through. There will be too many liabilities for both of them. They don't ever want to be asked a question if those conversations ever happened. Maybe they can use an intermediary or whatever. But I don't think that they need to communicate. I think all they have to do is watch what's happening to each other. And they're both smart enough guys that Trump can see how they're going after Barr. Barr can see, well, he's been watching for 2 years. I mean, Barr saw what they did to Kavanaugh. Keep that in mind. Barr watched the Kavanaugh hearings, and it may have been the Kavanaugh hearings that really, the Kavanaugh hearings are what really lit Lindsey Graham up. And it's possible that the Kavanaugh hearings are what lit Bill Barr up. I'm not sure what it was that motivated Bill Barr to put himself in this situation. He did not need any of this because they are going to destroy him if they can. They're calling for his impeachment. They want him impeached from the Attorney General's position. They want him to resign. They want him thrown out. And they're going to target him now until, this is over. And probably forever. Even after he's long left this planet, there'll still be Democrats reflecting back on him and targeting 30 years from now in conversations. He knows this is devastating to his legacy, but he was willing to put it all on the line, take the abuse he's going to take, so there has to be something here really important to William Barr to take this on. Something's got to really be, this has to be important. Okay, so what I think this is all about is that I think that the plans on the other side, just as Barr and Trump have both thought this through, and they both have an idea how this must play out so that they can survive it. Because, bringing out the deep state coup is going to bring out the worst in them. They're going to retaliate. They aren't just going to let you bring out all the facts, show that they were criminal conspirators, and all go to jail and they're all just going to take their medicine. No. These people are going to fight every way they possibly can to the very end, and they'll probably never admit to their crimes. And they are going to retaliate. So I think that both Barr and Trump have thought this through very carefully and thought, okay, when I do this, they're going to do this. And when I do this, they're going to do this. I think they've both thought this through very carefully. I don't think they need to communicate. I think they kind of have the radar love thing going on. I think they both understand exactly what's going on. It's not necessary to communicate it. All they have to do is watch each other and see what's happening to know exactly where it's all going. Now, I have no doubt in my mind that the Democrats, the rotten Reverend Clinton, Soros, and all the media and all the rest of them, I have no doubt that they all know that Barr is a serious individual who is going to pursue his investigation and likely will result in criminal indictments on Comey and Lynch and Yates and all these people, Strzok and Page and the whole nine yards. And so my guess is that they're already preparing for that. They've probably already written the scripts. They've already got the guests lined up. They've got the signs made for the protests. If Soros can turn those protests into riots, they'll do that. James Comey gets indicted. Boom. They can start protests. They can turn those into riots. If they can turn this country inside out, ignite a civil war, they'd be willing to do this in order to try to save their hides. And what they're going to do is, and that's what they're working on now, is they want to make sure that when the indictments come down, they can point the finger at Barr and say, see, Trump puts in Barr, this guy, his man, and now he's going on a witch hunt, on a political witch hunt against Trump's enemies. Trump's a dictator. Barr is a, he's like the dictator's helper, and this is the kind of slam that's going to be coming their way when the indictments come down. They're going to try to turn this into a political issue. So what William Barr is absolutely has to make sure that he does is make sure that as much as possible he doesn't do anything that feeds the political stuff. He wants to make it totally a legal thing. He wants to be able to say, well, look, hey, I did an investigation. These things were brought to my attention. I investigated them. We had a grand jury. They were seated. They heard the evidence. They heard the testimony from the witnesses. They made a decision. There is reason to move forward with the trial and to indict. This will all play itself out in a courtroom, and the jury will make the decision, what have you. So this is the track that Barr wants to try to stay on, is the legal track, but it's going to be turned into a political circus, and everything is already in place to do that. I can assure you that they've already got the entire script written, because they know. The media knows, the Right Reverend Clinton knows, Soros knows, the Democrats know, the media, they all know. They all know that eventually there are going to be indictments coming down. They know exactly what they did. They know exactly what they did, okay? So that's not a secret. So it's all about the politics of it, and Barr is going to try to keep it in a legal framework while they try to turn it into a political football. Now, another thing is Barr and Trump both want this thing to happen quickly, because what Barr doesn't want is for this thing to end up, all this stuff coming out a year from now when we're just getting into the meat of this general 2020 election, because then they can say, see, it's all political. Here comes the election, and all of a sudden Barr wants to do this. So Barr wants to get this thing out and done, as soon as possible, long before the elections really begin in the general election. Trump doesn't want this going on while he's running for re-election. So both Trump and Barr want this thing to be aired out very, very soon. My guess is that Barr is going to wait for the Horowitz report to come out. That will give him some cover, although I expect as soon as Horowitz puts out his report, he'll become a target as well. So Barr can use Horowitz's report to be the reason that he launches a more extensive investigation, appoints a U.S. attorney, prosecutors, investigators, seats a grand jury, brings in witnesses, gets testimony, presents documents, all these sorts of things. I think that they want to get this thing, I think they'd like to have this thing basically done by the end of this year, so that indictments are out, pretty much all that's been done. There may be hearings and stuff going on after that, sentencing hearings and things and such, but as far as getting to the bottom of it and getting it out, I expect that to happen certainly by the end of the summer. I expect during the fall will be when we're probably seeing the grand juries, the indictments coming down, and by the end of the year, the thing hopefully aired completely out. The politics will still be raging, but I think that they want this thing clear so that when the new year comes around in 2020, especially a year from now in the spring, late spring of next year, when the general 2020 election starts, they want this stuff behind them. I know Trump does, and I'm sure Barr does as well. Barr may serve 2 years, take care of business, and then say, okay, I'm done. I did what I needed to do. I came in and cleaned out the swamp. I exposed the perps. Now I'm going to leave. And I would not be the least bit surprised to see that's exactly what he does. Now, there's one other thing I want to talk about. I've been hearing about for about a week now. And even William Barr mentioned it today in the hearings about this, something that's been floating around for about a week. I'm not sure who started it, but it's this Russian disinformation campaign. They're now suggesting that the entire thing was a Russian disinformation plot, meaning that Christopher Steele went to these Russians, and these Russians said, hey, there's Christopher Steele. He's looking for some dirt. Let's give him some. And that these Russian disinformation agents gave Steele a bunch of crap on Trump. And then that somehow made its way into the dossier. And that's how we got this whole dossier and the whole 9 yards. And what does this do? Well, this essentially gives the perpetrators, the conspirators, the Right Reverend Clinton, the media, and everyone else kind of a pass, because they can then say, oh my God, we got duped. We got duped. All that information coming from Russia about Trump and the dossier that was all fake, that was a Russian disinformation campaign. Wow, we all were duped. Wow, those rascally Russians. I really hope Attorney General Barr doesn't buy into this. I don't know why he would. I'm not sure why he mentioned it. Maybe he just threw it out there. But I don't think it takes a reasonable person who knows this story and knows the evidence very long to figure out that this doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And it totally flips the narrative, because if it in fact was a Russian disinformation campaign given to the Democrats as a dossier to destroy Trump, then what that would suggest is that the Russians wanted to destroy Trump, not Hillary. They wanted to help Hillary and hurt Trump. Why would they want to help Hillary and hurt Trump? Well, there could be a lot of reasons for that, but you'll never hear the media ask that question. So I guess that the conspirators would rather have to admit that they got duped by the Russians, including that would be all these intelligence agencies, foreign intelligence agencies, the State Department, the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA. Everybody got duped by the Russians, by the dossier. I'm sorry, my friends. First of all, again, as I've said many times, if the Russians had blackmail material, which they probably do on the rotten Reverend Clinton, they don't have anything on Trump, but they probably do have plenty of blackmail material on the rotten Reverend Clinton. But if the Russians had blackmail material, they wouldn't be passing it off to WikiLeaks. They wouldn't need to go give it to Papadopoulos or Carter Page or something. Like, why would they do that? That's stuff you hold very close to your vest, and you wait and you use it when it can best be used. You don't go passing that type of blackmail information on a U.S. president around like it's nothing. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, just from the get-go. Plus, if you look at this thing, if it's a Russian disinformation campaign, then how did they know to go to Christopher Steele? I mean, did someone go to them and was trying to get information, and so they got turned? In other words, the source that Steele relied on for his Russian sources, turns out those Russian sources turned on Steele's guy and gave him disinformation instead of real information. And if it was bad information on Trump, then why would the rotten Reverend Clinton and the whole DNC and the whole group get behind it if actually it was going to backfire and be proven to be Russian propaganda to hurt Trump? How, in fact, would that have helped Hillary? What, did they just know that all this stuff was going to be suppressed until 2 years later? I mean, they couldn't have controlled this. No one, that would be too ingenious. These people aren't that smart. Not to mention, again, a lot of these things that happened long before even the dossier was even thought about. I mean, the entrapments of Flynn and Carter Page actually occurred back in 2014, 2015, even before Trump even announced he was running for president. So these operations were going on long before that. And what was Misfit working for the Russians? Was Halper working for the Russians? I mean, was it the Russians that had Misfit tell Papadopoulos that they had dirt on Hillary? So that's the case you have to make. You have to go ahead and make the case that Misfit was working for the Russians, or he was duped by the Russians. Everybody was duped by the Russians. You see, it just doesn't work. If you dig into this and you get the facts, you'll eventually conclude that there was no freaking Russians. I don't care what anybody says. There was no Russians. This entire thing was home cooked by Confusion GPS and the FBI and the CIA and their friends over in the UK. It was a home-cooked little deal. There was no damn Russians. The whole thing was a hoax. That's all it was. Home-cooked hoax. If Barr investigates deep enough, I'm sure he'll find this, but I'm not falling for the Russian disinformation campaign. I'm not falling for it. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See ya. Bye.